Welcome everybody to our fourth live stream of Lockdown 2021. My name is Mark Skelly. I'm the President and Acting CEO of the Hutt Valley Chamber of Commerce. We're really pleased today to introduce Lance Jensen, my business partner at Red Hot Business Coaching and Consulting. And Lance is going to lead us through a session today on operating at level 3. So Red Hot Business Coaching and Consulting are bronze partners of the Chamber of Commerce, and we have been actively supporting business owners in the region and across New Zealand for 18 years. We're registered service providers for the regional business provider partner network. We did a lot of work during lockdown last year helping people get through COVID, and we've been working with our clients this year to do the same. As we transition to level 3 tomorrow, there's lots of things we need to make sure we remind ourselves of and make sure we put in place so we can trade safely and compliantly. And so we're going to go through a number of those areas today. Today is primarily focused on businesses that are going to be returning to the workplace to trade. So if you're continuing to operate at home and the guidelines are if you can continue to work from home, do so. Today's not for you. Today is for those businesses that will be returning to the workplace to trade, and we'll be seeing customers, suppliers, and people in that space in their workplace. Look, Lance is going to cover off a number of things today, some of which will include some of the different requirements across varying industries, some safety procedures to consider, the process of bringing your team back to work and some things you want to consider about that process. Also the cost benefit of actually do you come back to trading during level 3 or not, as well as some web directories and some online tools to think about. Look, it's been a while since we've done this. There's lots to get back up to speed on. Lance is going to take us through that now. I'll be here side by side with him, but Lance will be driving it. So Lance, it's over to you.
Hey Mark, thank you. That certainly feels weird having you introduce me. I know you're wearing very different hats these days, but yeah, I'm definitely keen to have you sit alongside us. And for everybody else there, you see Mark all the time as the Chamber CEO and board chair. I'm keen to have him back on this one as business coach alongside us. He's in the space heavily and has a huge amount to contribute. So I'm sure he'll jump in and add to any gaps or omissions that I might make.
Thanks, Lance.
Look, level 3, level 4 with takeaways is what everyone's calling it. But it's an interesting space. It sucks that we're here, but we are. So we've got to figure out how we get on with it, obviously. One of the things we've realized is we're kind of in the business of being in business, which is probably a weird thing to say, and most of you guys as business owners are not. I thought I would just make sure I was fully fluent and refresh my understanding of what all the requirements were, and about 18 tabs in, I realized why some people might find it a little bit challenging to understand exactly what the rules are. So I've done my best to summarize these, and we'll work through it. As we go, assuming we've got a few people on the line, if you do have questions, please fire them into the chat and comments, because everybody's situation is subtly different. We can give generic statements and guidelines, obviously, but if you have specific questions, please throw them in, and we'll do our best to cover yours off at the end. So, yeah, I was reading articles, trying to stay current in it. One of the numbers that was thrown at me was about 43% of businesses will be able to open in some way, shape or form at level 3. So half, unfortunately, are still going to be shut down and stuck at home. And I very much feel for those. So for those of you who can open and do a little bit, this one is for you. The first thing I'll touch on, and it was a throwaway comment in yesterday's announcement. I believe it is written in the documentation somewhere. I've struggled to find it. Is that you are now allowed to get back to your premises or return to your premises to prepare for being able to open tomorrow. So yeah, it was a throwaway. It was a very small passing comment in yesterday's announcement. I went looking for it in the legislation. I've been told it's there, but I struggled to find it. So If you're unsure about that, you are able to now go back to your space and premises to actually start getting ready before tomorrow, which is nice. It just wasn't abundantly apparent. And just to reiterate what Mark said, if level 3 still has a massive amount of restrictions, so it's not carte blanche, it's not open, we can't go back to normal. The rules very much are, if you can operate effectively or operate at all, essentially, from home, the intent and the desire is that you do stay home and you keep your team at home operating from home. As much as possible, they want us to stick within our small bubbles and not grow those or increase those any more than we absolutely have to. So I do want to reiterate that. And even if you can only partially operate, so you can partially operate from home and you don't need all your staff back at work, if you can have team members working from home and be connected and effective, again, that is the intent. So please keep that in mind. It's not a bring everybody back to work. That's not quite the level we are at just yet. Cool. So, and then when we are going back, the general rules, like the overarching rule to try and kind of keep in mind, is you can go back into your space and into your premises so long as there is no close contact, no groups, and if your team is in your space, there's a requirement that they are socially distanced and safe. Plus, the expectation is that there is a reasonable amount of cleaning and hygiene and wiping of surfaces, etc., to try and ensure that there's no transmission even when they are in each other's space, which does make operating in that manner fairly challenging. So if you're in a small space, in a small office, keeping everybody a meter apart is definitely something you have to keep in mind. Wearing masks, does that make sense? Do you have what you need to be able to be clean? Do you have masks for your team? All that sort of stuff. So we can go back, but the general rules are no close contacts.
Yeah.
So
and the good news is this time around, Lance, is that the supply of those materials is a lot more abundant. So I'm sure we all remember last year, where do we get hand sanitizer from? Is there even any sanitizer? It was like liquid gold. You couldn't get a mask to save yourself. All your normal suppliers are going to have that available. Jump on Google. You'll find plenty out there. So, and they're open for business, so you can go and get those things if you need them today.
Yeah, we were discussing that before we came on, and I think we all noticed after the last one that there was an oversupply almost. So I think there'll be a few people quite happy to move a little bit of stock. So trying to source that stuff shouldn't be anywhere near as challenging as it was last time. You may, if you don't have any, you may need to wait until tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah, sorry, that's a good point. Not
be able to get it, but hopefully you can be placing orders and preparing for that today. So retail, hospitality, basically the short version is you can't actually open your doors. You're not actually allowed anyone into your shop. They're pretty strict and definite on that. So you can take orders, but everything has to be contactless. So orders need to be contactless. Packing and picking up all needs to be contactless. So you can certainly provide obviously goods, you can provide food, but it has to be done at arm's length. That's probably the easiest way to say that.
Yeah, it's interesting because the definitions of that are still a little bit unclear. So it is outside your premises. So that contactless pickup, that's a table outside your door. It's not coming into your premises as we saw last time. So
was that allowed?
It's not coming into your front room or your front space of your business as previously. At least that's the guidelines we've seen so far. You can do deliveries to a table at the front or to cars out the front. So that's another thing to consider as well. Some businesses can deliver to a car. You can reserve a car park. You can, when people place an order or make a phone call, give you a license plate number and deliver to vehicles. So again, if you're small volumes, that might work, but not if you're a larger volume business. I
actually saw a very creative solution for that. I think it was a chemist. they must have had a PO box, a wall of PO boxes, and one of them wasn't being used, and they opened that up, and that was their mechanism for pickup and distributing goods. Right, so there is a long list. I'm actually going to look down a little bit. I apologize, but actually read through a few of these just so I don't miss some. Actually, I'll start on the slightly harsher one, which I guess I need to do for completeness. So there are a number of businesses that definitely cannot open at level 3, which I will quickly run through. So farmers markets, nightclubs, unfortunately any entertainment and tourist facilities, so museums, cinemas, libraries, all that sort of stuff. Where there's obviously close contact, hairdressers, beauty salons cannot open in level 3. They're all still stuck at home. Gyms and exercise facilities cannot open. Cleaning, even in-home cleaning, is not allowed to be done. Door-to-door sales is on that list, and driving instructors is a specific exclusion in there as well. So if you're any one of those or in that category, unfortunately, you are still at home. You are not trading. Now, I know there have been, I think last week, the Chamber did some presentations with, I think it was Alistair maybe, in terms of your subsidies. The subsidies that are out there and that are available to you, please pay attention to those. Maybe go back and watch that. Make sure you take advantage of the funding and the support that is there, because like I say, it's only about half of the country that is actually able to trade at some level at level 3. So if any of your team can work from home, leave them at home. Keep them working from home, please, first and foremost. The new one, or not new one, QR codes and scanning is a massive one. Now, I'm sorry, I can't remember. Do you know, Mark, when that becomes a legal requirement, or what that actually looks like? I know there was a lot of
there's been some announcements. I believe it's 7 days after the lockdown or the alert level changes that there's going to be a mandatory record keeping. And so that means that, again, details are still to come out about how that's going to be enforced or what the detailed recommendations are around that, but that's moving the liability onto you as the business premises to keep track of who's coming in and out. So obviously that starts with supporting visitors and customers to scan in using your QR code, which you're legally required to display, but that may also require you to have a secondary backup method of register to record who was there and with their contact details. So again, more information to come on that, but do expect there to be some more requirements for you as the business to keep track of who's coming into your premises. That will include not just customers, but it will include staff, any visitors, and any deliveries. And so one thing to really think about in this space is also if you are taking deliveries into your premises, how you maintain distancing through that process. Obviously, they can't just rock on into the back of your premises and mingle with your team. You're going to want to think about how you minimise that. Sounds obvious, yet important to think in advance before your first delivery arrives as to how you're going to handle that.
Yeah, and not everybody's going to have a smartphone. Not everyone's going to be able to use the Tracer app. So there will need to be a manual process in terms of a list and a register. People will need to sign in on. And as Mike said, eventually that's going to become our liability and our obligation rather than the people visiting our space. So
part of that contactless thing, Lance, is also how you receive payments. So taking cash is not going to work. It's contactless payment, and so that means it's your PayWave. There's an opportunity for one of the banks, if not all the banks, to come to the table again this year and reduce those fees for that service.
Have you heard any noise that might actually happen?
They did that last lockdown, but I haven't heard anything from any of the banks as of last night on that space. So online payments or PayWave, even just using your FPOS machines, not okay, because again, that's every finger is going to be touching that keypad, sticking in pins, and that's a no-go. So again, just think about how you'll actually take payment if you're opening your doors.
Yeah, even just a direct bank transfer, if you can get the communications right, that's pretty instant these days, or certainly they can show receipts if you need proof of the transaction. Cash is not an option, and pushing buttons should not happen if it can be avoided at all, right? Yeah, 100%. Actually, there are some businesses that can have people in on their premises. I said before, for most of us, the doors are essentially closed. People aren't allowed in. So as a blanket rule, that is most of us. The few where that we are actually allowed into a space, supermarkets, which we know about, dairies, which actually surprised me. So dairies can have people come in, butchers, fishmongers, greengrocers, petrol stations are now allowed to open their doors again, pharmacies and doctors and health service providers.
Yeah.
So
just on that, Lance, it came through yesterday, I believe, that dairies are now considered to be essential workers,
right.
which means they've got preference for vaccinations as well. So if there are any dairy businesses watching today, or you know somebody, make sure they're aware that if they are wanting to get ahead of the queue for vaccinations, they can do so now because of that status.
They're actually listed as essential. Does that include now butchers, etc.? If they're
not that I'm aware of, I think it's dairies was specifically added, but yeah,
specific dairies. Cool. So there's only a very small group of business owners that can actually allow people in and onto their premises. Everything else should be done. Essentially, assume your doors are closed, but you've got a window to pass goods and receive money.
Yep.
Just reiterating, contactless, which Mark has mentioned. That means no pushing buttons, no touching hands, no exchanges of money where we can transmit anything. Hygiene, I'll touch on again. The expectation of surfaces being wiped, being clean, having sanitizer, having it available, using it, making sure it's there for customers is an expectation. And the probably the harder one, and the one to remain more conscious of, especially when you get into that environment, when you're working with people, is to try and maintain that 1 meter social distancing, even in and around your premises. And I guess for me, the way I remember or think about that is we still want to keep the bubbles as separate as possible, and every person you're in contact with, you are now part of their extended bubble. So the fewer people in that space, the better, the less likelihood of transmission, which is why that one is important. But it's also a probably challenging one to stay conscious of if and when you move back into a normal, well, as close as possible sense of operating and running your business.
Yeah.
Trades and builders and the like is one that often comes up. Different environment to the retail and hospitality type space. Good thing is they are allowed back. I'm sure many of you are keen to get back on jobs and back on sites and operating. The supply of materials, whoever you're buying from is going to be bound by the same rules as everybody else. So contactless purchases, so pre-orders, deliveries, or pickups via some form of drive-through. The larger trades will probably be well versed with that anyway. But yes, you can actually come back, but just plan and think about sourcing materials. On-site, same rules as anybody in an office space. Social distancing is important. Keeping your distance from, unfortunately, your colleagues, but also and particularly from your clients. If you're on a remote site, that's easy. If you're moving or working in customers' homes, social distancing again is important. Hygiene, sanitizer is important. For some circumstances, depending on what you are walking into, full PPE gear might actually be a requirement for you. So depending on the nature of your business, your trade, what you actually do, and where you are operating, I'm happy to field questions, specifics if people have them, but you can operate, you're allowed to operate, just be very mindful of the health and hygiene requirements for your situation and your circumstances.
Yeah. So with that trade space, some extra things to think about if you're working for somebody's home is to make sure that you've communicated what your procedures are to the client in writing as a preference. So make sure they know what you're going to be doing. Also, every member of their household bubble you should be treating as a contractor or visitor to the site. So just because they are there, they're not a piece of furniture. They're now a person in your bubble. You don't know what they're doing, where else they are going, and what other bubbles they might be going in and out of. So really important you keep a track of them as they come in and out of the home.
So
Also,
can I jump on it? Am I assuming, and my interpretation of that is, as we're obliged as business owners to do the contact tracing and make sure that people are registering, if you're a tradesman, you're essentially a mobile site.
correct.
And you are doing contact tracing on all your sites as you move around, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, your QR code's up on every site you're working from, and you're treating everybody coming in and out of that site as a member to your work site, which is normal in terms of normal health and safety stuff for something similar. It's just extending it for that contact tracing. And also some little things to think about if you're going to be a customer's site for a while, somebody's home for a while, toilet facilities. So really discouraged about sharing toilet facilities. So that is going to mean, if you're going in there to fix an emergency repair, different kettle of fish, you can probably hold on. But if you've got team members there all day long, you're probably going to need to think really seriously about some portable toilets to put on site, which might not have been required before.
Yeah, so like I say, every situation is slightly different. If you're unsure, fire us questions at the chamber, Mark and myself direct. Just please reach out, please double check if you're not sure or not certain.
Yeah.
Okay, just running through my notes. We've covered contract tracing quite a lot. We've covered the hygiene and sanitizer and cleaning, etc. So next one I got here is an interesting one, and I think I need to be careful how I choose my words on this as an employer and a business owner, which is actually the bringing your team back to work and what's expected. I observed last time there was some interesting interpretations around what being sent home meant and what the wage subsidies facilitated or allowed in terms of expectations from employees and or employers about their obligations to still be working. The wage subsidy is certainly not permission for a full holiday. If your employees can work, there's a reasonable expectation that they do work. Coupled with the fact that if they can operate from home, or you don't need your full team to operate at the level you can operate at level 3, you probably shouldn't be requiring them to come into your workspace. So it's an interesting balance in terms of requiring your team to come back to work. It is a reasonable expectation that they do come back to work. They are still being paid. They are still on the payroll. They are still employees. This is not magic paid leave. Thinking about who you bring back, how you bring them back, try to make that equitable across the team is something that you need to seriously think about and work through how you do that. Yeah, you've also got some thoughts sitting there too, Mark. What do you want to add to that one?
Yeah. Maybe I should answer. It's balancing that it's not a holiday, but equally we don't want to bring people back out of their bubbles unless we actually require them. And I think that the point you mentioned before about that fairness across the team is really important. And there's something else to think about there also is that in terms of if you're a rostered business or you're able to run shifts, that's a really good way to keep the bubble separate. So you might have a morning and an afternoon shift, or day on, day off if you don't need a full team through level 3. And with that, if you are doing split shifts, try and maintain a separation so you don't have an overlap. So it's literally in and out without too much of an overlap.
Yeah, and again, everyone's totally different. It's I've seen there's a couple of questions coming through, which once I have a chance to properly read them, I think this looks like a topic to explore more into. The other thing to factor in is their personal circumstances, their situation, who do they have at home, are they any more vulnerable than other team members? There's a whole bunch of stuff to consider there. So putting a blanket rule over your entire team often won't be a sensible approach. It will very much be case by case and something that you have to seriously consider. Yeah. Because there was I don't think I wrote this one down, but what if my team just decide that they don't want to work for no real apparent or justifiable reason other than it's level 3, I don't like that and I don't want to. I know Tony did a session last week around HR and obligations and requirements there. I don't know if he covered that off, so I'll be very careful. And my recommendation is you get direct advice from your advisor who knows your situation. But my interpretation, my understanding is if they don't have a genuine or a reasonable excuse not to work, there's no reason why they shouldn't, providing you are able to provide them a safe environment and meet all the expectations and obligations. So if someone is choosing not to work, that should start to be recorded as leave, paid leave if they have it, if nothing else. There's no reasonable grounds, as I understand it, to just decide I don't want to.
Absolutely right. That's my understanding as well, Lance. It becomes a performance or a disciplinary issue potentially, if it gets to that point, and hopefully we aren't getting to that point with any team members. But you're right. If it's safe to come back, and they're being paid to work, the expectation is that they are. Yeah.
So again, a balanced, reasonable approach as an employer. It's an interesting line that is very grey in terms of how it's defined, right? Case by case, based on your team, your relationships, and the outcomes that you want. Yeah. Could I be any more politically correct or diplomatic on that one?
Now, look, let's talk about the process for bringing people back into the workplace, Lance. There's some things I wanted to touch on just briefly, and that's a realization that it's been a while since we've done this, right? So even if your team is exactly the same as you had last year, it's been a while. Everyone's rusty. And the second thing, and really importantly, is that the fact you're watching this is meaning that you're probably the person who spent more time getting your head into what level 3 means. You're on the website, you're looking at the pages, you're trying to figure out the different information, you're studying this, and you're thinking about the process and policies and the procedures to make this return to the workplace safe. Your team probably aren't. They're probably not sitting and haven't spent the last 24 hours or 48 hours or longer getting their head around what a return to work looks like. So just remember when you're bringing people back, you're much further ahead in the thinking process than they are, and you're much more informed than they are likely to be. So that's going to mean you need to actually train them and take them through what needs to happen. So you're going to need to deliberately make sure you train your team on what distancing looks like, what the hygiene and cleaning processes look like, what the contact tracing and handling looks like, how payments, all that stuff we've been talking about today and that's online. You can't assume they've got the same level of understanding as you do. So make sure you think about how you do that. A number of my clients are building PowerPoints, and they're literally building some PowerPoint slides, and they're booking a Zoom meeting with their team, and they're just literally going through doing the training today before people come back to work. To just, again, give some consideration as to how you're going to do that. Any thoughts on that, Lance?
Yep. No, just perfect. We forget that this is hugely important to us. We have our focuses, our business is our baby. They're focused on their world. They've got different things going through their head. So absolutely, it's important to realize that they need to catch up. The other thought that I did just have there is around schools coming back as well. If you've got team members at home with families, I believe schools are open for people now that require or need.
Essential workers are able to send their kids to school, and so they're up what they're calling bubble schools, which is really just glorified daycare, really.
Is that only essential workers though? What about people who cannot work from home now at level 3? I was not clear on that.
Look, I don't know, to be fair. I can't comment on that one. I don't actually know.
We probably should figure that one out so we can put a comment or a post up later. I'm not certain either, because that's one other significant factor that could be a challenge.
Yeah.
And the other note that I did have is, again, just talking about subsidies and funding and support. If you do have team members who have been to places of interest or are required to isolate or have COVID, etc., there's the leave support scheme and short-term absence payments, etc., that are also there to help people or to help you cover those necessary absences or required absences too.
Yeah. Cool.
But yes, it is a transition for everybody. So allow them some time and space to make that transition.
Yeah.
And I did have a note here, and I know, so I believe the Chamber, you've got someone coming to talk about wellness, mental health, sometime later this week.
Thursday afternoon, 1:30.
So if I guess I want to name it here, it's interesting, depending on who you talk to. We've seen different things, but there is an amount of fear, there is an amount of uncertainty, there is, I guess, a number of people who are finding this extra lockdown and this next wave challenging in terms of how they're coping and dealing with it. Another thing to be very mindful of for yourself, but also for your team members. The whole be kind call that keeps coming out. There is definitely some merit to that. Consider the other person. They may be dealing with some stuff that you're unaware of. Maybe allow them a few more slips or outbursts than maybe normal. Just be mindful of where people are and be supportive of that.
So have we talked about the cost benefit, Lance?
Yep, that's the next one on my list. So this is an interesting one, and again, it depends, right? Just because we can open at level 3 doesn't necessarily mean it makes sense, which is probably it sounds like a weird thing to say if you're a business owner championing at the bit to get back and generate some trade. But you do actually have to look at the cost benefit analysis of what does it cost you to actually open up and fire things up and man the shop or the space to be able to deliver and distribute what could amount to minimal trade. Every space is slightly different. The demands are slightly different. The opportunity to send stuff is different. But it is a question worth asking: does it actually make sense for you to open, even if you can, at level 3?
Yeah. And in many cases, and maybe most cases, it will, right? It's just it's a question that's really important to run some numbers on and make sure you're making a considered decision rather than just opening the doors. Well, not literally opening the doors, figuratively opening the doors.
Making yourself available.
So that you're not going to be costing yourself more money from doing so. But you had some extra points around where even if you are going to go backwards financially, it might still be a good decision, didn't you, Lance?
Well, the reality is we have a bunch of those costs anyway, right? So we're still paying rent. We're still we still have a bunch of those fixed costs. So they're not fully turned off. But what are the increased costs? Like, if we have to buy a lot of PPE gear, are there a whole bunch of extra costs to being able to trade that we wouldn't have if we weren't trading? And does it still make sense at that point? But there are certain costs we already have, so it does make sense to a point to leverage and use those. And from a customer service perspective, and I'm going to say remaining in their head that you are available, that you are there, so that their business doesn't end up going somewhere else who does become available, even just from a PR or a customer retention standpoint, it might make sense. And again, it depends on the nature of your customer base, the relationships you have, who you're serving. There's a lot of variables in there that need to be considered. And I think it's an important question to ask rather than just blindly go in and open the doors and try to make something work, because we can at level 3.
Yeah. Good point.
So, and again, that's the sort of stuff that very case by case. I'm sure you've had them, even just whether you know us or not. I'm happy to have conversations with different people if that questions you've got or questions you're asking or things you're trying to work out and work through. And then that comes back to if you are opening and choosing to open, and I hope after last time a lot of us have already thought about that, but how are we communicating with our customer base? Are we being proactive? Are they aware we are available for business and we can serve them? How are you communicating with them? Again, I'm very aware we live in a bubble. We're in the business of business, right? So we probably get more information and see more than many. So I see a lot of emails coming out with information and support. Don't assume that yours will be lost. If you are communicating with your customers, they recognize your name. They're usually pretty happy and grateful to hear hear from you and see your name. So don't be shy about communicating.
Yeah, jump on Facebook, jump on LinkedIn, use your email platforms, get it out there, make sure people are aware. Yeah.
If you can go direct, that's best. If you don't have that relationship or that contact information, ideally you do have a decent social platform or presence where you can make people aware of what you're doing. A couple other things to consider in and on that. One is your Google listing. Assuming you have one, I hope you do, making sure that you update the status there in terms of whether you're open or not and how you're trading. It's a standard feature. If you do have a Google listing, it tends to come up faster than anything else.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Lance, we've got some questions I want to get to. Before we do that, though, you were going to take us through some online platforms and some options that are available.
Yep, just jumping on those. And it's all about, if you can trade, if you are trading, how do you maximize the opportunity for people to find you? Last round, there were a bunch of directories and things set up. They're still there, they're still running, and by all accounts, they've actually been very good and very beneficial for those who have registered themselves on them and participated. And my understanding is they're all free to participate in and to register yourself on. So a few that I did find, one was At Yours, which I think is all around Wellington on a plate, primarily for that one, which Visa Wellington on a plate has hosted. A lot of those businesses who are going to participate in that are doing click and collect. If you are one of those businesses and prepared to do that, make sure you are listed on that directory and on that site so that people can find you and do find you. I think Wellington NZ must be hosting one. I can't remember the exact name of it, but that's more for baked goods, fresh food, produce, meat. I guess not the hot food stuff. Again, another very good directory. I think it was certainly well visited and well used last time around. And if you're not listed on that and you meet that criteria, I would encourage you to jump in and have a look and register yourself for it and be on it. It's also free. And then there was another one that was set up, was SOS Business. I always thought that was help, but it's actually about spend on small. And the intent there, especially for the small business, for the businesses who have been shut down, who their cash flow is obviously dried up. If you're listed and people know you and you've got a good following, and even on your socials, if you direct people there, recommend it. A lot of people were pre-purchasing vouchers, knowing that they could put cash in business owners' pockets. They'll get the benefit later, just helping trade keep moving, really. So if that's something you can do, I would encourage you to do that. Weirdly, last night, I actually, Tony Alexander is another one. Mark doesn't know about this. He produces an email every week, but he's one of the major economists. I saw that he's actually got a circular, and he basically said that if you're prepared to offer a 15% discount on anything going forward, he's happy to advertise in his newsletter, and he's got quite a high readership for free for the next 3 weeks as well. So that's another channel potentially. A lot of channels out there. Yeah. So, and if you do a quick search, just make yourself as big and as visible and as available as possible via all the channels if you are going to be opening up and trying to encourage trade. Let's try and make sure that it is worth your while, rather than just because we don't have the foot traffic, so it's going to be largely driven online.
Well, I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to jump into some questions. So we've got a couple of questions that have come through that I'm just going to address for us. So the first is, for a business, do you need your staff to complete a register as well as the COVID Tracer app, or is just the COVID Tracer app sufficient? If it is just a Tracer app, then the company doesn't have a record of staff and clients into the building. So look, the guidance here is to keep your own register for your staff as well. The Contact Tracer app would be something I'd be encouraging everybody to do, but keep yourself safe and make sure that if you do become a location of interest, you're able to support that process as robustly as possible. So my advice here would be keep your own register as well, certainly for your staff.
Manual check in, manual check out.
And somebody else has asked if they've said they've got 2 staff, but only require one of them to work under level 3, and they've chosen the employee that has less family demands. So it seems okay, but doesn't want to be guilty of discrimination. it sounds like an eminently sensible solution, doesn't it, Lance? That you would support the team. If I'm assuming you've talked to both members of that team, and there's an agreement to do that. And I certainly would expect a team to come together in these times and help each other out. So, look, it is going to come down to you as the employer as to who you think is the right person to bring back. Yeah, any thoughts, Lance?
I just very much do think it comes back to communication, ideally with the team and the collective. It's amazing who will step up for people who can't. I wouldn't assume that necessarily. The person with family might be happy to come back to work. Yeah. That's also a consideration. Even if it's less days or it's if it's done with communication and everyone's kind of understanding how and why, usually there's not going to be too many complaints.
Yeah. We've also got some links coming through. People are commenting with some of the URLs for those listings, which is great. If they're not showing up on the Facebook's pages, we'll make sure that they get up there. Lance, thank you very much for coming on today. It's a bit weird thanking Lance for doing this while I'm here, but I think everybody understands the multiple hats we're wearing here. Look, we've got a lot more information that we're putting out every day about information as a chamber as we hear about it. We are making sure that everything we communicate to you is from source information so that it's as accurate as possible, and we are in contact with the people that are making the decisions. So, look, as we briefly alluded to earlier on, our next live stream is Wednesday afternoon at 1:30. Thursday afternoon at 1:30. That is on mental health, which is a topic which is gratefully getting more airtime and being spoken about more. It's a really important issue, both for you as a business owner and manager, but also your team. So do tune into that and get some tips to how to keep yourself strong and how to work with any challenges you or your team are facing. Also, this week on Thursday evening, we have another live stream with the Riverlink project team. So you might be aware that the Riverlink has just gone in for consent. It's a huge project. It's the largest infrastructure project that Hutt Valley's ever seen. And so if you want to learn more about what's going on, what the project is about, what the benefits of that project are going to be, as well as what some of the inevitable disruptions will be through the construction phase, that is this Thursday afternoon at 5:30. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks, Lance, for your time and support. Stay strong out there. If you're going back to level 3, stay safe, and tune in next time. Thanks, everyone.